Okay, question 6. Which is not a real number? Now, we can always check all of these in our calculator and see which one would actually give us a real number, but let me explain to you the math behind these. So this is the square root of positive 3, which means some number times itself is going to multiply to equal positive 3. This one checks out, okay? We know that this is a positive number times a positive number to give us that 3. So we're okay there. Same thing with this 21 here, because this negative sign in front of the radical isn't going to affect it. This is basically like saying negative 1 times the square root of 21. So again, we apply that same rule, positive number, positive number. This is where we get into our tricky things. So let's take a look at the example of a square root. A square root is the opposite of squaring something. When you square something, you take a number, say for example 2, and you multiply it times itself. Okay, multiply it times itself for 2 times, that would give you a square root, where we would say the square root of 4 is 2 times 2. We also say it's positive or negative because a negative 2 times a negative 2 would also give us a positive 4. And if we took the square root of that, we could get either one of these because they multiply by themselves. Now, if I did 2 times negative 2, I get negative 4. I can't take the square root of negative 4 because this is not the same number as this. They are at different spots on the number line. So that's when I have to say I need to take an I, pull that out of that radical, and that's where I get my imaginary number from, because I cannot do the square root of a negative because it contradicts the definition. So I would say this is the square root, I square root of 4, which would give me a 2i. Okay, now that being said, that's for the square root, but I can do negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. That's going to give me a negative 8. I can take the cube root of negative 8 because it's times itself 3 times, and that still gives me a negative. So I can take an odd number root of a negative number. I just can't take an even number root of a number. So when I look at these up here, I have an odd number here of a negative number, and this is an understood 2, which is an even number. So this is not a real number. If I were to put each one of these in the calculator, I would get a solution. So let's do that. We have, let's see here, the square root of 3. We get that decimal there. We have a negative times the square root of 21. We get a negative, because remember that's like negative 1 times the square root of 21. Cube root, we go into our math section here and take our cube root of negative 19. We get a negative 2.6 and change. And then here, square root of negative 10. Uh-oh, non-real answer. So you can always check this in your calculator. Just want you to understand the reasoning why.